musical instruments at the museum. And this kind of came about because a while back I did a tour at the County Museum for a group of people that came in, and they were interested in seeing the musical instruments, the vintage instruments that we had. And I was really surprised because we have things that I'd forgotten that we had. And we have some really remarkable things. And so they were impressed by the variety and the stories that went with some of the things. And so I thought, aha, brown bag lunch. So we're going to do that today. But I'm sad that the pictures, I'm not sure how this is going to work because I did mess things up. But I'm sad that you're going to be seeing pictures, hopefully, on the screen. And if you were at the museum and walking around the museum, they're so much awesome, so much more awesome when you see them at the museum. And that's partly because of Pat Gent and her hard work, because she has set up such awesome exhibits at the museum that they look just beautiful there. The first one we're going to talk about, maybe. First thing we're going to talk about is Judge Jensen. And he's the reason that we have the museum. And this is Judge Jensen's trombone. You know, usually in our gift shop, as you first go in the museum, there are some vintage instruments for sale. And if you wonder why that is, it's because people donate them to us, but they have no Jackson County connection, or maybe somehow they just don't fit in with our collection, and so they give them to us to sell for money to use for the museum. We've had zithers, we've had awesome, awesome instruments for sale in our gift shop. Right now I noticed that there are two old accordions in our gift shop. But we're going to talk a little bit about Judge Jensen and his trombone there. We have all kinds of pictures of Judge Jensen, all kinds of stories about Judge Jensen, but nothing that mentions his trombone. But yet, before his death, this is one of the things that he brought us of his that he wanted in our collection. Does anybody know any Judge Jensen stories related to a trombone? Did anybody ever see him play his trombone? So I don't quite know what the connection was, but I did want to show you this picture. Because the courthouse has been kind of looking for this picture and this information. This is a picture that was very important to the judge. It's him paying off the mortgage on the Pearson Center building. It was owned by the Allison Pearson estate for a long time, connected with the Clinton Bank. And Judge Jensen and a lot of other people worked very hard to pay off that mortgage. And so this is him presenting the last check to pay off the building. He then went to the courthouse and he presented this building to Jackson County. And he told us, in paperwork at least, he told us that he wanted to be sure that the people of Jackson County knew that the Pearson Memorial Building was theirs, and that he had put an article in the newspaper so with this picture so that everyone would know that. Well, we've gone back through the newspapers and we don't see that that was ever in the newspaper, and there are questions over time that keep coming up about this. So Judge Jensen, there he is with the proof itself. Guess I'd be remiss, I'm in a little trouble here. Guess I would be remiss if I didn't mention the part that trombones have played in Jackson County history. And it was in 1908, which is just 3 years after Judge Jensen was born, that 11 members of the Royal Hungarian Orchestra made a stop in the little town of Lost Nation. They came there to do a concert, and they were treated royally, and the next day when they were left, one member stayed behind, and his name was John Francis Galushka, and you see him, I think, on the far side there. He had come to the United States from Hungary. In 1906, he graduated with distinction from the Leffingwell Violin School in Chicago. And once he was here, he took out a large ad in the Lost Nation Chronicle, and it said, Mr. John Francis Galushka, cornetist and violinist, teacher of violin, viola, and all brass instruments. And it said that soon he had more students than he could even manage. And very soon he relocated and came to Maquoketa. Well, we've had programs about him before. Mr. Jay Kahn, that's everybody knows and loves, has taken a great interest in John Galuska, and he has researched him. He's collected photographs of him and various bands and orchestras that he organized and played in throughout the area. And according to Mr. Kahn, he says that Galuska's presence here made a profound effect on all music in Iowa. And he's taken some of his, Mr. Kahn, taken some of Galuska's original compositions and he transposed them for use by the Timber City Band. And those he has recorded over time, and he was kind enough to provide a couple of them to us on an earlier occasion. And with the help of more technical people than I hope that we're going to be able to play one of those, okay? So we'll hope that this works.
Try a right click.
There it goes, right there. Right there. Click on the arrow. Arrow. There you go. Here it comes. There you go, it stopped.
Okay, but now I can't go to my next slide for some reason. Because I can't see it.
That is not the Timber City Band.
That is not the Timber City Band.
Not the current one.
Not the current one. This is John Galuska's band. And we know that what you just heard was Mr. Kahn's Timber City Band, and we know that Kathy Bailey was playing with that band at the time that he recorded this. Now I can't get back to my original thing. For sure.
Now you have to open it again.
And I can't see them doing it. All right. I really did mess this up.
There you go.
All right. All because I wanted you to listen to a couple things. If you learn one thing and you mess, at least I do, mess everything other than that up. Okay, so we know that Galuska and a very important person to us were contemporaries and avid musicians. And so we're pretty sure that they must have known each other. They were together in the last picture that we saw. And here you see right there you see a young man by the name of Matt Luckich. He was very important in Jackson County history. I guess one thing we have to, I hope you were able to pick out the trombone in that music. It was very different because in 1900, the slide trombone was very rare. There were valve trombones, but there were not slide trombones, so you didn't hear that woo part. It was just beginning to replace the valve trombone among professional musicians, and it was becoming a real phenomenon. And this very talented young man had just graduated from Maquoketa High School in 1899. He graduated at age 14. He was destined to become the second world-renowned scientist to graduate from our small community within 14 years of time. At age 16, Matt Luckich sent $8.50 to Montgomery Ward and bought a slide trombone and an instruction book. He taught himself how to play it. He learned it very quickly, and very quickly he realized that this was an opportunity. He came from a very poor family, and this was an opportunity that he had to earn the money to pay for his, what was to become an extensive education. So he paid for it, with playing his trombone, he paid for his way through degrees at many different universities. And then he said, I had the good sense to abandon music for a real career. There was a time he played with circuses, he did all kinds of things. He was having so much fun that he didn't want to go back to school. He was having a good time. But he made himself. And he said, I had the good sense that too many musicians that I played with did not. He became an electrical engineer. He accepted a position with General Electric, and he was their director for over 40 years. He's known as the father of light and one of the inventors of the fluorescent light. And I don't mean to say that we have his trombone, we don't, but his trombone was very, very, very important to our history here. Sorry, this is not working well for me. Okay, sorry I'm just going to do this, I'm sorry. Okay, so this beautiful organ is in the museum at the other building, up in the Victorian room. It belonged to the Anderson family. The Anderson family lived on a farm south of town. Actually, they were across in Clinton County in the late 1800s. And it came to 402 South Main Street, which is right across from the middle school, in a covered wagon. The parents had passed away, and the three daughters of that family moved into this house. And then after many years, a grandson, Paul Hansen, who you see in this picture, he was a contractor here who built over 33 houses and some commercial buildings. He inherited the organ. But when he retired, he moved to Minnesota and he took the organ with him. But then one day he called us and he said, you know, that organ really needs to come home. And he arranged for Harold and Elaine Waters to pick up the organ in Minnesota and bring it back to us. Like I say, it's upstairs in the Victorian room. It is a beautiful, beautiful organ. So hopefully you'll take a close look at it one day. That's one of our awesome musical artifacts. Another thing that you see as you first come into the museum is the Wurlitzer pedal harp. And as you can tell, it was from the Willman family. Gaylord Willman was born in Wyoming in 1922, and he taught science for a couple of years, and then he came to Maquoketa as junior high principal and a social studies teacher in 1949. Most of you here, I think, knew Mr. Willman, had him for a teacher. Some of you worked for him, right? Some of you named Barbara Mayberry. Well, he served for principal of the junior high school for parts of 5 decades. Actually, it was 34 years, but it was part of 5 decades. Gaylord died in 1993, and his wife Betty, and a lot of you probably knew his wife Betty, passed away in 2002. no, 2011. And she was a fine harpist. And she had her own beautiful harp. Well, after she passed away, the house was sold, and they did donate very, very many things to the Jackson County Historical Society, and we're grateful for all of those. But this harp that you see here was donated to us at that time. It had belonged to her grandfather Stoltz, who also played the harp. And it's a Wurlitzer pedal harp from the 1800s. And again, just as you come into the other building, it will greet you. One of our most prized possessions. Now, at the top of this harp, it says Wurlitzer 113, Chicago/Cincinnati. So with it came many boxes of sheet music for the piano and the harp. We went through all of them. We kept many of them for the museum, but there were boxes and boxes. So those ended up being donated to the music library of a university. But in trying to find out some of the history of the harp, and I was trying to find out its history mainly so I could get a grant to restore it. It has some damage, it needs to be restored. We don't want to restore it to plain condition because the strings would put too much tension on the wood. The wood is old. We wanted to restore it so people could see its beauty and see what it should look like. But in order to get that grant, I had to prove to people that how old this harp is. Well, we got in touch with the Wurlitzer company to find out that all of their records, their old records, had been burned in a warehouse fire. They had no idea about this harp or how old it was. We are all assuming that because it had a low number, 113, that it was very old. And then we found a woman by the name of Regina Ederveen from the Netherlands. And she was compiling a list of all the remaining harps of this type that she could find. And she was, that were still in existence, and she was attempting to reconstruct these records. Well, that's exactly what we needed to have information to get our grant. But she found that there were very few of these left. They were almost all gone. And the ones that were left have been restored and belong to very famous people, like famous artists or musicians, or to famous collectors. And they are scattered all around the world, or maybe they're owned by a big institution like a museum. But ours still seems to be one of the very earliest. That's kind of all we know at this time. Mr. Kahn did try to help us find out some of that information. He was really valuable there, but we're delighted to have it. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. If you look closely, and I'm sorry the pictures are bigger, if you look very closely, you can see the pedals at the bottom. And it's just very, very nice.
Miss Stoltz was a teacher also.
Thank you, I did not know that.
She taught at the Fort Worth School.
Okay, would this be her?
She was one of my teachers.
Okay, okay. So this probably belonged to maybe.
This Mrs. Wellman was Miss Stoltz.
Okay.
And I was his child.
Okay, and this belonged to her grandfather, this harp. It's very much older. So I'm told that they're by I can't think of his name. Bruce Wellman, what's his name? There were 3 harps in the family. The one that Betty played, an older one, and then this very, very old one that had belonged to the grandfather. So they chose to donate this one to the museum. So we were really glad to have that.
Bonnie?
Uh-huh.
I remember the one that Betty played was Emily.
Emma, oh, thank you. Yes, she had named it.
Yeah, it was Emily. To bring Emily.
And she took it from place to place, didn't she? Does anybody remember hearing her play? What church did she?
I did.
You do? What church did she go to and play? Was it Congregational Church?
Yeah, I played with her there.
Did you at a Congregational Church? Yeah, so that's neat. Well, this was her grandfather's harp, and so we're really glad to have that.
See what?
Okay, we talked not very long ago about the Bellevue Piano Company. And so we're not going to say very much about that today, other than, you know, we do have people that come to the museum there just to see our Bellevue pianos, people that know about them. We have two, well, actually we have three. One's in storage. We have this one, and then we have the player piano that we talked about that we play for all the kids when they come, and it's lots and lots of fun. This one, we probably talked about. It's not as beautiful as it might be. It was made of quarter sawn oak, and then someone, through time, lacquered it black. And as you slide the door shut, you can, the little doors at the top, you can see that they forgot to lacquer that part, so you see what the original looked like. We've always wanted to be able to restore it, but that takes a lot of money, and we just haven't been able to do that. But we do know that in its busiest day, the Bellevue Piano Company sold 333 pianos, player pianos, in one day, and shipped them out. So that was pretty remarkable, and we're really glad that we have that. Something else, maybe visitors who come to the museum are more interested in Red Hitten's horseshoes, which we don't have, than they are his guitars. But this is one that he brought us, and you can see he signed his name. He's signed his name on it, and he gave that to us along with his Oklahoma Cowboy shirt there. I'm sure that Red had many, many guitars over his years, and I'm sure that this isn't one of his finest. We just like to tell ourselves that it was still one of his favorites, right? But people who knew Red are excited to come in and to see this and to have it. And he gave it to us on a special occasion. Fran Riley from KWQC TV, he's passed away now, but he did so many wonderful programs that I know many of you have listened to over time. He came to our museum and filmed a segment about Red Hitton and his life while he was there, and that was when Red Hitton gave us this guitar. So it's very special to us. And next to it you see, ta-da, the Oklahoma Cowboys drum. So we know by looking at other photos through the years that the Oklahoma Cowboys had many different drums, and they had different icons, I guess, on the front of different drums. This is just the one that we've had. But you know, they were a very successful, very popular band through the years. The puzzle remains who started the band, and I don't know if that's important, but it's something that we always get that question from people. There are claims that Jack Simon and his Cowboys, that was a band, Jack Simon and his Cowboys. It's said that they were the predecessor to the Oklahoma Cowboys. Other contenders for this honor are, of course, Fay Moeller, who played with them for quite a while, Laurel Williams' dad, Gil Strohmeyer. It will be said that he started the Oklahoma Cowboys. He played with them for a long time. But I find the story about Gil Strohmeyer really interesting. If you didn't know this, he was I did not know him, but he was an incredible woodworker and a great carpenter. And while he was at work, he had the misfortune of losing one of his fingers in a saw. Well, he didn't want to give up his passion for music because he played a saxophone. Lots of finger work with a saxophone. And so he actually reconstructed his saxophone so that he was still able to play it with a missing finger. So I think that was really, really ingenious. Another thing that we have at the museum that maybe you've never noticed before, and is this beautiful brass horn. I don't know what this is called, and I haven't been able to. Does anybody know what this is called?
Looks like a tuba. Looks like a tuba.
A tuba?
Yeah.
Shirley?
I played something similar to that all through high school, and it was called a baritone at that time.
A baritone.
Yeah.
This
There
is-
is another one.
This is bigger than,
Between that and the tuba.
Yeah.
But
Oh, really?
I
Yeah,
don't
I
remember
didn't.
what it's called.
Okay. Well, we need to find out what this is. But you can see it there upstairs in our museum. It's back in the library cart where we have all of our artifacts from the Salvation Army. And so this is a horn that was played in Maquoketa many times. And there you see them on their favorite street corner. That's the corner of Main and Platte, right outside the Mexican restaurant. The reason that that's their favorite corner is that that is the place where the Salvation Army started here so very long ago, I think in 1885. That's where they were when they started. And on their 75th anniversary, this plaque was added to the wall there, telling about it being started.
Do you know where that plaque went off the building?
Yes, the next slide will show you that. You bet. Thank you. Nancy?
Would that be a euphonium?
Oh, do you think?
Does that sound right, Kathy?
No, they're, euphoniums and baritones are both about the same size. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that's a tuba. It's just a biggie.
Okay, well, we need to figure that out. It would be nice if when people came to look at this, we could tell them, you know.
An alto horn?
An alto horn?
Um,
Okay, but hopefully you can see it there.
Sorry, I'm all out of this one.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost my place again. I'm curious. Because I can't see.
Okay, so then we have the corner that was famous for the Salvation Army, and this is a picture of them moving the church. Now this was the Salvation Army Citadel. For many years it sat on James Street, kind of behind the post office. Yep, I'm sorry, and the post office. It was on the other side of the street. But behind the post office. Okay, thank you. That's an important piece of our history, because that was the first citadel in Iowa, the first one west of the Mississippi, as a matter of fact. After 117 years, it was moved to Horseshoe Pond. And this is a photograph of it being moved. And they drove it down Main Street and put it at Horseshoe Pond. And there it was kind of rehabbed a little bit, and it was made available for scout meetings and wedding receptions. And the plaque that was there is on a post outside of that, I'm told. And I just want to give credit. We have a card for Alvin Barton, and Alvin Barton and his wife. I'm looking for the amount. Vera. They were the main movers and shakers behind the moving of this. They raised, did I tell you? They raised $21,000 to save this building and move this building to Horseshoe Pond. It's a very nice place for it, and it looks very, very nice there. Okay. So then, moving right along, we have the American Legion Drum and Bugle Corps. And we have some of their things at the museum as well that we're really proud of, because they too played a very important part. They were American Legion Timber City Post number 75, still in existence, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Mary is very much a part of that. And here you see them. They had just this outstanding drum and bugle corps, and they performed all around the state, maybe beyond the state, I guess I don't know that. In this photo, they're seen in 1931 at the Davenport State Convention. There were many dozens of bands there. They took second place. In 1932, they again performed at Fort Dodge, where they took second place, and they won many first places as well. Interesting story about them is they practiced evenings down in the ballpark along the river. And a lot of times the fog would come in while they were practicing, and they would have their uniforms on, and they would go home just soaking wet from marching in the fog. And here's another photograph of them, and if you can see that, the names of some of the people. I was surprised. It seems to me that as times have changed, fewer and fewer people are members of bands like this anymore. Now they're the high school kids and things like that. But I know you'll recognize some of these names. Dr. Risser and Dr. Swift were part of this, and they're in row 3. And just a lot of names that I'm sure you will remember. But it was a great thing, and they brought great credit to Maquoketa. One of the artifacts that we have, even though you can see it's not in the best of shape, we have one of the beautiful bass drums that the Timber City Drum and Bugle Corps had. You can see its name. We've put it back together the best we can, and it's kind of covered there, so it's kind of hard to see. But that's on display in our military section over there. And the other thing we have is, okay, so because of the way my pictures aren't working today, this is the bugle that Harold Hinckley played. And of course he was the drum major. He was the award-winning drum major from this. Back to this. So Harold Hinckley, the druggist in Maquoketa, was the drum major for many years. He's the one who formed the Drum and Bugle Corps. And he, in 1933, he was named the best drum major in the state. And he was known for how he strutted. He was tall and he was lanky. And I'm told that in part of his, as he was strutting, he would bend almost completely over backwards, and he just amazed the crowd and won many, many awards. And so we're happy to have his trumpet. Okay, now I do know what this is called. It looks like a French horn, but it isn't. It's a mellophone, okay? And it's like a French horn, but this is the version that they used most often in marching bands. And this instrument belonged to Walter Brodesson. He was a brother of Helen Feeney, born in 1918, and he died in 1945, a first lieutenant in World War II. And he took this with him. I mean, he had this instrument with him when he was serving when he was in the service. And so it's really beautiful, and it is over there as well. So I hope sometime that you will look at that. And this is one of my favorites. This is a mandolin. Is that right? A mandolin. A mandolin. I know I'm not saying that right. This is a mandolin. We have two, but this one is extremely, extremely valuable, we believe. It's 128 years old now. It was a very popular, it was designed as an 8-string instrument of bygone days, is what it says. This particular one was a deluxe model. It has mother-of-pearl inlays and a finely designed wood in a watermelon shape. So the back of it, and I should take a picture of the back of it, is very rounded, like a watermelon. It's beautiful. We know that its owner was Nettie Swigert, and you see her there. She was the daughter of William Swigert, who came here in 1854 and started the Jackson County Sentinel. She played in the Ladies Symphony Orchestra from 1898 to 1905, and that group of ladies traveled to neighboring towns to perform by horse and buggy. And this beautiful instrument was donated to us by her daughter, Josephine Nelson, in 1991. But it's a beautiful, beautiful instrument that we have there. And though it's hard to see, that is an old accordion that is not for sale, but is in our collection. It belonged to William Henry Harrison, that we talk about a lot. At his death in 1917, Henry, who you see there, was the oldest resident of Maquoketa. His father was, of course, Benjamin Harrison, that arrived in Maquoketa in 1850, and he founded the Harrison Funeral and Furniture business. Henry entered the business in 1867, and he became the first embalmer in Jackson County. Their family business operated for 103 years in Maquoketa, and he was the great-grandfather of Helen Feeney and Sarah Jones. So we have his accordion. And this is a melodeon. All these names. So this melodeon really does not have Jackson County history. It was donated to the museum by Milt Cornelius. It is a beautiful, beautiful piece of furniture as well as an instrument. We do not know its history, but we do know that The melodeon was a type of reed ornament, reed instrument. We know that they were made prior to the Civil War. They were used through the Civil War, and they did not play as many octaves as a regular organ. Instead of double reed, they were single reed, but this one had several octaves, and they're said to be very, very rare. There's not very many of these remaining today, is what I read. So that was from Milt Cornelius. Okay, so this is a set of drums. Don't know a whole lot about them. You can see the whole set here. And then this is a very special drum that Katie Phillips played. Katie Phillips, I believe, worked for the post office. Is that correct? I think he was a postal worker his whole life, but he was a musician. He sang and played at every opportunity that he had, and he was part of the Dribblators, who were so well known from here. They were a group of men that dressed up like women. Guess you didn't do that very much today. They dressed up like women, and they imitated Carmen Miranda and different people like that. And they started out as a way for the Pythians to earn money to buy a new carpet for their lodge. And they became so popular that pretty soon they were being invited everywhere. And then these men who had day jobs ended up almost every night they were traveling somewhere to perform because they were so popular. And so that was the Dribblators. And then we come to our very special, only artifact that we have in this building, right there. So I talked to Jim Foster this morning about this piano. He made it possible for the Historical Society to get this piano when they closed the Foster Family Music Center that was in the Quad Cities. He told us at that time that it was the last of its kind, and he thought that this piano, this particular piano, we had just opened the Clinton Engine building, and he thought that it was the perfect piano for us. He said that it's American made in Philadelphia, and it was made in 1957, just the time this building was going strong. And he said it was interesting because at the time when this was made, there were over 100 piano manufacturers in the United States. And today, he said there are very, very few. It was, again, made in 1957 in the classic modern style. And you'll notice it's more of a blonde piano. Traditionally, pianos were always hardwood, they were always walnut, they were always mahogany, or something like that. This one was blonde, it was more traditional, and it was important because it was small. It was cheaper, it was lighter to move around, but he said that this piano still produced the great sound of bigger pianos, and this is at a time when families traditionally felt they needed a piano in their home. This was the generation of mothers and fathers who grew up with a piano in their home, and they just couldn't imagine not having a piano for their children, but maybe they couldn't afford a big expensive piano, so these pianos came along and they filled the bill. So, you know, we have so many interesting people that come through our museums and tour the museums. A lot of people interested in our instruments. But one family came here, and I don't know their names, but they were so interested, a mother and a father and a little boy who I believe was 10. And they were asking all kinds of questions about the engines, et cetera, but the little boy kept coming back to the piano. And so finally I said to him, "Did you take piano lessons?" And he said, "Yeah," and they kind of giggled a little bit. And I said, "Well, if you'd like to play, you're more than welcome." So he just kind of lit up and he sat down at the piano. And this is what happened. And hopefully this will work, okay? So this is our piano with a little 10-year-old boy. this was recorded by me on my little telephone. Then it came sort of to the computer, and then, so the sound of this, I'm sure, has been much degraded. If you could have heard him, he was 10.
How old is he now?
I don't know. I asked if I would be, if I could, yeah, since I recorded, I asked if they would have any objection to my playing it one day, and they said no, as long as I didn't use his name. And they never gave me, I knew his first name at one time, he was Kevin. I don't have his name, I don't know who he is, they didn't want us to know, but they were happy for us to hear him play our piano. And if you could have been here that day and heard it right from the piano, right? It was absolutely marvelous, so.
What year was that?
You know, it was probably about a year ago. Yeah, it's been a while since they were here. But that little smile at the end, I just thought was so adorable. Anyway, does anybody have any comments about any of the instruments that we have or that you think we might have at the other building? Alice, do you like our piano? You're a pianist. It's a nice little piano, right? So, no questions? Okay, thank you so much for coming. What? I think it was about a year ago. Yeah, it wasn't very long ago that he was here. And they were just a marvelous family. And if I remember right, he was homeschooled. And I thought, what an interesting thing. I mean, his parents were so wonderful, so about him learning. You could just see them teaching him things all through the building. But I felt a little ridiculous when after hearing this, when I had said to him, do you take lessons? He was wonderful. I've seen that
Years ago.
I don't remember hearing, I don't remember, I played this before. Did I play it before? Maybe I did.
Ronnie, I have a question for Alan. What was the name of the song?
Yes, and I don't know that.
I thought Alice might know.
I don't know.
It's familiar, but I don't know.